All right, as we get started, I want to let you know we have already gone over the quiz from yesterday, and I encourage my students in here, if they hadn't completely memorized all those units, to keep working. That particular quiz is passed, but future quizzes, speed drills, tests, you're going to need to know those units. You're going to be able to need to use them in future lessons. So keep working on memorizing them if you don't have them all mastered just yet. We will be adding more units to memorize as well in a couple more lessons. So keep working on them. Don't fall behind and get yourself in a bad place. We also spent just a little bit of time drilling over them. Once again, this time Luciana won our competition. Basically down to her, Bryson, and she managed to get back to her seat before he got back to his. But it was fun. I'm going to spend some time drilling and reviewing. For now, for classwork, it'll take just a few minutes. Work on page 219 to review numbers 41 to 48. Practicing with those percentages. Want to make sure we get those things down. Bit of a struggle on the last test, so want to keep working at them. You're working, Ben. Stay focused. Just another minute to get as many of these done as you can. You want me to close it? Too obnoxious here to work it out there. Better, just a little more. right, pencils down. Even if you're not finished with all of these, I think you got enough practice to kind of keep things sharp or maybe touch some things up. The bottom line is on a percent problem class, we are either going to have to multiply or divide, right? What's the key word we're looking for? To know whether we need to multiply or divide, class? Of. Because of means multiply. So if you know, for instance, on these two problems, this percent of that, then you just multiply. If you don't know this percent of that, class, you're going to have to divide. So in this problem, I'm going to have to divide. And how do we typically show division, class?
Fraction.
With a fraction bar. So I'm going to start by putting a fraction bar, and it's always that percentage, that part that goes on the top. Underneath it, we'll put, in this case, the percent. But I'm not going to write the percent. I'm going to change it, class, to a decimal by going
Boink,
boink,
boink.
boink. And when I go boink, boink, what do I write underneath the 3, Bryson? 0.125. Now, as you wrote 0.125, your brain should have been thinking, wait a second, we know 0.125, class.
3, 1/8.
1/8.
Yeah.
So this becomes 3 over 1/8. Well, then you should be thinking, this is now a complex fraction. This fraction bar means divide, but I don't divide with fractions, I multiply. So I could have changed this to 3 times 8 over 1, or just 8. What's 3 times 8?
24.
And we could get the answer really easily that way. Now, you say, what if I don't remember that 0.125 is 1/8? That's a big bummer. Because what you have to do is go boink, 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 and up here boink, 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 and you have to take the time to divide 3,000 by 125. Now, you still gonna get 24, but it's not as easy as that. Helps to know your fraction decimal equivalents. Regardless, though, how many got the 24 for this answer? Questions? On the next problem, class, am I going to multiply or divide? Divide. What goes on top of the fraction bar, class?
30.
The 30. What goes under the fraction bar?
0.4.
0.4. Now, that is a fraction we should recognize, class. 2/5. That's not as easy as flipping and 1/8 to get just plain old 8, right? If I flip that, it's 5/2. I still have a fraction. I don't know if I want to deal with that. And it's only one digit to have to go boink on, right? 300 divided by 4 doesn't scare me. Now that said, there's nothing wrong with making this a 2/5 and multiplying by the reciprocal 5/2. But 5/2. But dividing by 4 is not a problem either. 4 goes into 30, class. 7 times, with how many left over? 2, and then 4 goes into 20. 5 times. So we get our 75 pretty easily that way also. Either way, you get the same answer. How many got 75 for number 42? Questions on 41, 42, how to set those up when you're finding the base, finding the total. All right, these two, though, class, we said we know both sides of the word of, and of just means multiply. So I just multiply. What do I multiply the 18 by, class? 0.4. Don't bother with the 0. 4 times 8. 32. Carry the 3. 4 times 1 plus 3. 7. And I only have one decimal place in the answer. How many had 7.2 or 7.20 for your answer? Questions? Is it making more sense if we're missing it? As you see it worked here, it's like, okay, start to make a little bit more sense maybe. Okay, Ben, paying attention up here? Pay attention, learn, because if you're not raising your hand that you get it, you need to make sure you're paying attention. Right here, class, what do I need to multiply the 300 by?
0.88.
0.88. But I've got 2 zeros and I've got 2 decimal places, class, so I could let them sort of just cancel. Yeah, make it just 88 times 3, where 3 times 8? 24, carry the 2, 3 times 8 plus 2.
26.
And we're done, just like that. How many? 264 for number 44. All right, look at the next one. Do I multiply, class?
No.
I divide, don't I? I make a fraction. Anytime you find a percent, you make a fraction. In this case, what is the fraction I need to set up?
12 over 60.
12 over 60. But I can reduce that, right? I can cut both of those in half, for instance. 630 is if you happen to only cut it in half. I think we should know our 12 times tables enough to take it down to 1/5, right? Or now we divide out the 6, get 1/5. What is 1/5 as a decimal, class?
0.2.
0.2. And then if you just go, boink, boink, you get 20%. How many had 20% on 45? What fraction should we make for the next one, though, Sam? Always the part over the whole, even when it's bigger. Still 500 over 25. Now this isn't too bad division, because we think money, right? How many times does 25 go into 50, class? Twice, evenly, right? Nothing left over? How many times does 25 go into 0?
0.
But I need to make that a percent. Class, how do I make this a percent?
One.
And what does it become? 2,000%. How many got 2,000% on this one? Questions on that one? For those who made it this far, number 47, you're going to divide by 0.8, go boink, boink, and make it a 560 over 8. You get 70 for your answer on 47. Number 48, you know both sides above. Just multiply 0.52 by 140 or 5.2 by 14, and you get 72.8 for your answers. Questions on that review stuff? Again, we're not going to see as much percent moving forward, but it is still going to be there periodically, and we need to know it. I would say of all the concepts I teach you, other than later on when I introduce some review exercise or some money stuff, some financial literacy, percents, so practical. Your whole life is going to be affected by percents. You need to be able to work with them. All right, let's go and flip back, though, flip ahead, rather, to page 221. Yesterday, we began looking at the other system of measurement besides the U.S. customary. And we could escape things like pounds and ounces, and we can get away from things like feet and yards and inches, and we can go to a system that really just has 3 major units. For length, class, in the metric system, they use the meter, hence metric. For a capacity, they use the liter. And for mass, or weight, as we might think of it, they use grams. But if you wanted to change how many of them you have, their units simply say, well, if you have 10 of them, it's this unit. You have 100 of them, it's this unit. You have 1,000 of them, it's this unit. If you have a 10th, it's this. 100th, this. 1,000th, this. And they're all based on powers of 10. What is that prefix that means you have 10, class? Deca. Think of a decade, 10 years. What means you have 100? Hecto means 100. They both start with H. What means you have 1,000 of them? Kilo means 1,000 of them. What if you only have a 10th? Deci, right? D-E-C-I. What if you have a 100th? Centi, think century if you want to, or a cent for $1. Or if you have 1,000th, milli, right? So these are the different prefixes that we need to know. Also, remember we said we could compare some different things. A meter. I have a meter stick here. This is 100 centimeters because each centimeter is 100th of the meter. If I flip it over, it's not quite a yardstick. The yard is right here where my finger is. It's just a few inches longer. Class, which is bigger, a meter or a yard?
A meter.
A meter is that little bit longer, about 3 inches longer. If we look at a centimeter, it's about the width of my pinky finger. Remember, the inch is roughly the width of the thumb. Which is bigger, the centimeter or the inch? The inch is that little bit bigger. A decimeter is about the width of your hand, right? That'd be 10 of these centimeters, because that would be a 10th of the meter stick. All right, so which would be bigger, a decimeter or an inch? The decimeter is bigger than the inch. So if you can think of different body parts for comparison, remember we said which is bigger yesterday, class, the gram or the ounce?
The
Ounce.
The ounce is bigger. Do you remember how many grams it takes just to make a single ounce?
2.2.
This was going to be your Jeopardy question. You were going to make millions with this, Michael.
Oh, wait, no, it's not. 28.3.
28.35. Kirsten jumped in. She couldn't take it anymore. 28.35 grams to the ounce. Which is bigger, a liter or a quart? The liter is a tiny bit bigger. If you look there, a liter is just a little bit bigger than a quart. A liter is 1.06 quarts. They're almost identical. The liter is just a tiny bit bigger. So we got some questions here. If we want to flip over to page 222 now, and let's just kind of see here. Some of these I've asked already, some of these I haven't. Which is going to be bigger, number one, a centimeter or an inch, class? The inch. Think of it this way. If you have a basic ruler, how many of you have ever looked at your ruler to know how many inches are on it? How many inches, class? 12. That's pretty easy because it's a foot-long ruler. Have you ever noticed how many centimeters? 30. Be a good little number to keep in the back of your mind. About 30 centimeters equals the single foot. So if it takes 30 centimeters to do the same thing that 12 inches can do, obviously the inch is the bigger unit. So you can circle the inch on number 1. Now remember, I said a quart is almost exactly the same as a liter. So which would be bigger, a kiloliter or a quart? Kiloliter would be way bigger, wouldn't it, class, right? Because you got 1,000 liters, that's more than 1,000 quarts. It's going to be way bigger. Which is bigger, the kilogram or the pound? The kilogram is bigger. You might want to mark this down. A kilogram is, just remember, 2.2 pounds. So your weight in pounds, about half that is your weight in kilograms. Not quite exactly, obviously, but about half that. So kilograms, about a little over double a pound. Kilograms bigger. Kilometer or mile? I mentioned it yesterday.
Mile.
The mile. Think about it this way. Look at this here. Remember, this is about this is a meter, right, class?
Yes.
It's not that different from a yard, right? How many yards in a mile?
How many miles?
1,760. Class, how many yards in a mile?
1,760.
You gotta have that number memorized, remember. How many of these in a kilometer?
Oh.
Only 1,000. Kilo means 1,000, right? 1,000 of these for a kilometer. Almost 1,760 of these, right, in the mile. The mile is going to be considerably bigger. I said yesterday a kilometer is about 5/8 of a mile, a little bit bigger than half a mile. Hectogram or centigram? Hecto means you have how many? 100. Centi means you have how many? 100th. So which is bigger? Definitely the hectogram, way bigger. Which is bigger, a deciliter or a kiloliter? Kilo means you have 1,000 of them. Deca means you only have 10 of them. So obviously the kiloliter is bigger. Which is bigger, a millimeter or a meter?
Meter.
The meter. Remember, a millimeter is 1/1,000th of the meter. The millimeter is itty bitty tiny, and the meter is decent size. Decimeter or centimeter?
Decimeter.
Decimeter compared to centimeter, right? Because a decimeter is 1/10 of the meter, where the centimeter, you got 100 of those things to make the meter, right? Decigram or kilogram? Kilo means 1,000. It's definitely going to be bigger than 1/10, right? Which is what decigram would be. What about deciliter or just plain liter?
Liter.
You'd rather have the whole liter than just 1/10 of the liter. Decagram or gram?
Decagram.
Decagram means you have 10 grams. That's obviously going to be bigger. Kilometer or millimeter?
Kilometer.
Kilometer. Going to be 1,000 meters. Millimeter, just a tiny piece of it. Questions on the kind of the comparison. That's more for your reference, so you can be thinking, class, does my answer make sense? All right? It's a good way to think. Now, I told you yesterday that because all of these prefixes are based on powers of 10, to convert from one thing to the other, we're not going to have to multiply or divide at all. Because multiplying or dividing by powers of 10, class, all we do is move the decimal point. Now, quick reminder, what if you don't see a decimal point? Where is it hiding, class?
At the end.
At the end of the number. All right, so what we need to do, though, is we need to keep track of the units that we have in the proper order. Our biggest unit, of course, is kilo, which means 1,000. Our next biggest unit is hecto, which means 100. Then 10 class is deca. And then if we don't have any prefix at all, that's still bigger than the other three, isn't it? No prefix, just the plain unit by itself, is bigger than 1/10 of the unit, class, which would be deci, 100th of a unit, class, which would be, or 1,000th of a unit, which would be milli. So what I like to do when I'm working these problems is I like to write out the prefixes. Now you might be thinking, Mr. Nadasky, how can I keep track of the correct order of these prefixes? There's so many, it gets so confusing. Well, you remember one key historical fact. It should help you. How many have heard, I don't think you've been here in world history yet, so you'd have to go all the way back to 5th grade. Old world history geography. There was a guy in England named King Henry. Do y'all remember who King Henry was? Have you talked about him this year? You talked about King Henry?
No.
Okay, do you know how many wives he had?
Yes, 6.
He had a bunch of wives, didn't he?
Yes.
And one at a time, he just kept like divorced. In fact, he split. The Anglican Church that you've heard about exists today because King Henry wanted to divorce his wife, Catherine the Great. He wanted Catherine of Aragon, excuse me. He wanted to divorce her, and the Catholic Church said, you're not allowed to divorce. That's not legal. The Bible says no divorces. And so King Henry's like, well, forget you. I'm going to make my own church, and I'll be the head of this one. And I'll tell myself I can get a divorce. I guess when you're the king, you can do that until you have to stand before the great king. And then he calls the shots. But anyway, so he divorces her, and he gets another wife. And I think he kills her.
Yeah.
And another wife, and I don't remember if he banishes or kills her. It just goes through the wives until eventually he gets what he really wanted all along, which wasn't actually a wife, class. It was a son. He wanted a boy, somebody who could take over the throne. And his son Edward was a sickly, weak little guy. Very depressing. But I guess that's what happened. Anyway, King Henry, you would think he would have died from one of the wives offing him to save her own life. But that is not how he died. He did not get slain in his bed with a stab wound or a slit throat or anything. He died really unexpectedly one day drinking chocolate milk. Now, I will say, we don't know if it was poison, right? We would suspect, but I mean, they didn't have the ways to test back then. So anyway, if you'll remember that King Henry died unexpectedly drinking chocolate milk, you can remember the order of the prefixes. Okay, disclaimer, that is not actual fact. I made that whole thing up. Well, he did have a lot of wives, and he did kill a bunch of them, but he didn't actually die drinking chocolate milk. But for our purposes of our math class, we will remember, class, say it with me, King Henry died unexpectedly drinking chocolate milk. Now, when they came up with the metric prefixes, they didn't do us any favor because there's two that start with D, right? We have deca and we have deci. We're going to use the D and the A to abbreviate deca, and we'll just use plain old D to represent deci, because we can't do D for both of them, okay? Now the question is, how do I remember which one's which? You just have to remember deca has the DA, sorry. All right, so King Henry died unexpectedly drinking chocolate milk. And let's suppose we want to convert from one unit to another. For instance, page 222 at the top of the page. They say, what if you have 25 meters? How many millimeters will that be? Well, you could, if you wanted to, think, well, let's see here. A millimeter is 1,000th of a meter. Therefore, it would take 1,000 millimeters to equal 1 meter. If we have, therefore, 25 meters, which is the larger unit, we would be converting to a smaller unit. Larger to smaller, we shall multiply by 1,000. We shall have 25,000 millimeters. You could do that, but mathematicians are lazy. And here's what I do. I say meter. There's no prefix on here, is there, class?
No.
That's the unit. And I put a little dot right there. And then I say, I'm going to what, class? Millimeters. That's this M right here. And I go, what? And I count. 1, 2, 3. That way. And I go to the 25 and I put a little, and I go, to match what I just did there. And I say 25,000. And I'm done. That's all it takes. So look at the next problem. Thank you. All right, look at the next one. They give us 50 kilograms. And they want us to convert to centigrams. And so we say kilo. That's the K. I want to go to centi. That's the C. Let's see, that's 5 that way, right? Where's the decimal? Right here. 5 that way. They all get filled in with zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zeros. So 5 followed by 6 zeros. 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, 2, 3, comma. 5 million centigrams. No math.
Easy.
You just boink. That's all you gotta do. Yes, ma'am.
So, can you only do that with zeros, or like, can you do it if there's?
I'm so glad you asked. Look at the next example. They give us 16 milliliters, and they want us to convert it to centiliters. Well, where do I put my first dot, class? Well, technically the number is here, but as far as on the King Henry died unexpectedly drinking chocolate milk, where do I put the dot?
Milliliters.
Under the milli, under the milk. Now, where am I headed, class?
To
To the C, the chocolate. Boink. I only boinked one time that way. So I boink, whoop, one time that way. Now what do I got? 1.6. That's it. So we just move the decimal. Now here, why did I put zeros? Because they won't nothing there. What if, though, I had something like this? What if I had 0.73 hectograms and I wanted to convert that into plain old grams? Class, where would I put the dot?
Under Henry.
Under Henry. And I go boink until I get to what, class? The unexpectedly, the unit, because gram doesn't have a prefix. Boink, boink. 2 places that way. Boink, boink. 2 places that way. What do I get, class?
70.
Do I need to put any zeros?
No.
No, because I didn't leave any gaps. They're right there. I didn't go under any spaces. What if I wanted to convert these milliliters, class, to hectoliters? Well, then I'm starting where, class?
Henry.
At milli,
Milk.
milk, and I'm going all the way to Henry. Count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I would have started here, and I would have gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many zeros do I need?
3.
1, 2, 3, and here's the decimal out here now, isn't it? 0.00016. So you only put zeros if you have to, just like before when we boinked the decimal. Same basic thing here. And literally, you make your life easy. Now, I have had students, I will tell you, I have had students who try to be smart. And they try to say, I can do King Henry in my head. I can visualize it. I can boink in my head without writing it. Why? Be lazy. King Henry died unexpectedly, drinking chocolate, and boink, 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 boink. It just makes it easy. Don't try to do it in your head. Put the decimal and boink. Look at the next one. They have 800 millimeters, and they want us to convert to kilometers. So looking at example B, class, where do I start the decimal? Under the M, under the milk, and I go all the way to
The king.
the king. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 places that way. So since their number originally was 800 millimeters, there's the decimal at the end of the number, right? I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many zeros do I need now?
3.
3 zeros. 0.0008. Do I need to write those 2 zeros?
No.
I don't need to. I'm too lazy. There's my answer. Questions on this?
No.
All right. How many remember this from years past? How many say I've never seen this, but it seems easy? How many say I've never seen this, but I'm traumatized? All right. Don't marry 6 wives, you won't be traumatized. I want you to do numbers 13 through 18 at the bottom of the page. You might want extra paper because there's not a lot of room to work. You may want some extra paper here. There's not a lot of room to work on this page. Do 13 to 18 at the bottom of page 222. Remember, if you see DA as the prefix, that's deca. If you just see D, that's the deci. You put the dot first, and you only count how many boinks you do. So. Several people already finishing up. Take 30 seconds longer, and we'll go over the answers. All right, pencils down. Even if you're not done with all of them, check the ones you did get done. For number 13, 4 liters. How many deciliters, Jalen?
40.
40. Number 14, 15 meters. How many centimeters, Luciana?
1,500.
1,500. Number 15, 9.3 hectograms. How many grams? Bryson? 930 is correct. Shouldn't be wrong. You started at hecto and you went boink, boink. And so you put the point that was in 9.3 and went boink. That's the 3, boink. That's a 0, 930. Right? So long as you boink, you should be good. Number 16, 19 kilometers. How many hectometers? Griffin?
19,000, I think.
All right, we're starting at kilo, and we're going to hecto. Boink. Just move one place. So what do you get if you move the decimal one place on number 16? Just point once.
190.
190. Boink. Add a 0. We're done. Number 17, 41 kilograms. How many decigrams, Sam?
41, I didn't get the.
Did not get that. Let's do it together real quick. Where do I start my decimal? At the K. And I boink until I get to what?
The D.
Just the plain D, right? Not the deca D, but the deci D. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so take your decimal and move it 4 places. And what do we get?
Uh, 41. No, 410,000.
410,000. There we go. Number 18, 14 hectoliters. How many deciliters, Kirsten?
14,000.
14,000 deciliters. How many got all the ones you did correct? All right, do we need to see any of them worked out besides the couple I've already shown? Let's try 6 more. Do 19 to 24 now. So you say, I wasn't quite getting it, but I think I'm starting to understand. Good. Do 19 to 24. Let's see if we can get it this time. Work them in waves to make sure little by little we get better and better understanding. You just boink. So we're going to do a lot of that in this class. Okay, Michael, I will shut the window. We'll all suffocate and die, but at least you won't have to hear the noise. I'm just making I guess technically it's page 223 now, not 222. Yes, sir. Question or just playing with pencil? All right, to save time, let's take a look at these together now. Number 19, they give us 19 decagrams. Remember, DA means deca, not deci. 19 decagrams. How many centigrams, Ben?
19,000.
19,000. Number 20, 25 kiloliters. How many liters, Michael?
25,000.
25,000. Number 21, 14 meters. How many decimeters, Elaine?
140.
140. Number 22, 81 kilometers. How many decameters do we have there, Jalen?
I was just gonna read 23. 8,100.
8,100. Number 23, 1.3 kilograms. How many milligrams, Bryson?
Okay, 130 million.
How many zeros do you have, Bryson?
I have five.
5 of them, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So you're not wrong, you just didn't read it quite correctly. If you have 5 zeros come in, 3 of those come, 3 zeros, not 130 million, just 1,300,000 is correct. The good news is you don't have to read the answer out loud on the test, but should be able to read it. Number 24, 4 meters. How many centimeters, Kirsten?
400.
400. And we get all the ones you did correct this time. All the ones you did were correct. And we just missed one. Questions? You say, I'm still not quite getting it, Mr. Didasky. Can you please help? Questions? All right, finish out that set, 25 to 33. Finish out the set now, 25 to 33. A little bit longer set this time. Keep boinking under King Henry's grave. I mean, King Henry. died. Great.
Oh, guys are so graphic.
Yep.
Other teachers hand out Jolly Ranchers. Some teachers just talk about death.
Yeah.
You know.
You're that teacher.
Apparently. Just another minute or so, we'll be finishing up. All right, pencils down. Even if you're not finished with all 9 of these, curious to see how we did on the ones we got to. Let's start with Sam on number 25. 738 centiliters. How many decaliters?
I got 73,900.
All right, so we start with the decimal point where on King Henry?
The C,
The chocolate. There we go. And we boink until we get to the
the DA.
D8. 1, 2, 3. Now it's important, Sam, that you not only realize how many places, but notice I went this way with the decimal. So on 738 centiliters, I'm going to have to start with the decimal at the back, of course, because it's not already in the number, but I have to boink that way. 1, 2, 3. So I should have
0.73.
0.738. Does that make sense? Not just the number of boinks, but the direction of the boinks. All right, so for number 26 then, Sam, we have 1.6 meters equals how many hectometers? Well, where do I start? Class, actually. Where do I start with my dot?
U.
Under the unit, because it's just plain meters. It's not millimeters, it's plain meters. How many, where are we going to boink here, Sam? Till I get to the H. 1, 2. But notice it goes that way 2 places. What would I get if I boinked that way 2 places? 0.016. Does that make sense now? All right. Number 27. What did you get for your answer, Griffin?
I got 1,240. I think I went the wrong.
You did, yes. So we're going to start with the decimal where?
And the grams. And
Which
the
is where? Where on here is grams?
The unit.
The unit. I need to boink until I get to what?
Hectoliter.
Hecto. Boing, boing, technically hectograms. So if we point 2 places that way, what do I get?
124.
2 places that way. 1, 2 that direction. What did you say?
124.
If I go boink, boink, the decimal's now here.
A point one.
0.124, there we go. So let me come back to you then, Griffin. On number 28, they had 252 millimeters. We're converting to decimeters. We need to start with the decimal under the
Millimeter.
the milk, right? And we need to boink until we get to the deci, which is this D, not this D, that's deca, this is deci. 1, 2, that way. Where's the decimal in the number? 'Cause I don't see it.
At the end.
And if I boink 1, 2 that way, what do I get?
2.52.
2.52. Does that make sense? All right. Number 29, Luciana, what'd you get?
0.008.
0.008 meters. Number 30, Bryson.
4.2.
4.2, because you went from the DA to the H, just 1 boink that way. Stay with me. Number 31, what did you get for your answer, Kirsten?
0.0849.
0.0849. Number 32, Ben, what'd you get?
0.024.
0.024. And then for number 33, Jalen?
0.03065.
0.03065 is correct. Homework for this evening, page 224, numbers 1 to 19. Page 224, doing just 1 through 19 in the homework section. All right, you are dismissed. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yes.